welcome to Sparking Thought. My name is Kyle Gannon.
I'm Tristan.
I'm Jack Cheston.
And today we're going to be talking about the first thing we want our new president to do when they are elected into office. We're going to go around and each of us is going to share what they think it is, and then we're going to go around again and everybody's going to back up and kind of explain themselves. I believe that the first thing they should do when they get elected into office is to reform and better our education system.
I have a more mainstream opinion that is take care of the debt. It's also a broader thing that should be done. But
and in classic quintessential Jack, I picked two because I just couldn't choose.
Classic Jack.
The first thing I'd like them to deal with is dealing with getting money out of politics, and the second thing I'd like he or she to deal with would be climate change.
All right. So this is unfortunately a 15-minute episode, so it's going to be shorter. So we're going to try to keep these explanations and the debate that ensues concise. So for my own, in terms of education, it's well-known fact that American education has plummeted in quality. I don't know about you guys or anybody listening, but I have heard countless times my dad, went to public schools. When he went to public schools were excellent. They were great. He felt like he got a great education, and now we place consistently within 22 in sciences, according to some tests, and according to a 2012 PISA study that takes the averages from an OECD test or an OECD average from all the countries, first and developing world countries with centralized and public education systems. We placed 36th overall. And in addition to that, according to a 2013 article, we also spend the fifth most out of those same countries in terms of education spending on the average student from elementary school through high school and the end of their public education career. We spend $115,000 on them. So an immense amount.
Yeah, and that actually ties in with mine too, with the debt. We're obviously spending a lot of money, but it's not doing its job right, because the countries that don't spend as much as us are way above us in the spectrum of education, and I think that's really a big problem. We're obviously not using our resources to their fullest potential, and that's a big part of what makes a government operate is efficiency. And if we're not being efficient with our money, things like, education problems ensue. And yeah.
Well, I think both of those are totally valid points. I mean, they're certainly pressing issues to our life as we know it. But when I sort of thought of this question, I was thinking about, okay, first thing I'd like the president to do once in office, that to me is the most pressing issue in America. Unfortunately, as I said, I couldn't think of just one. I thought of two. And first, climate change. I'm gonna try to belabor this point as much as possible and just hammer it home. There are statistics every day I'm reading about how we're at a point of no return almost. That scientists are giving us a couple generations to sort of flip the switch on climate change. That animals are going extinct as they should, but at X times the rate that they're supposed to, and it's because of human intervention. Bees are struggling big time. Butterflies and bees, both of which Einstein actually said when bees die, humans are going to have a tough time. And last time when the dinosaurs went extinct, actually there was a coinciding extinction beforehand of bees. So whether that's a coincidence or not. California hasn't had rain in 5 years. I think obviously we're at sort of a dire point with the climate, and as I've said before, everything is sort of relative to the climate. If the world dies and all the animals on the world die, then the debt suddenly doesn't really matter anymore. And I know that's sort of a weird, that's obviously a you can't look at everything that way, and you can't focus all your energy on the climate, but it's certainly something that's important. And it's scary, but it's also sort of sad to me. As a lover of the environment, I'd like to see it sort of turn around. Second one, money out of politics. I feel like, you spoke about sort of the discrepancy between the amount of money we put into education and the amount of money we get out of it, per se, being that we're 22nd.
The value of the money we spend.
I think a lot of our problems that we see are actually due to the fact that politicians, more and more, and I'm not saying this is true for all politicians, but certainly there's something at stake. There are things, people have jobs who are called lobbyists. There are oil companies who don't necessarily want to move to sustainable energy. There are big business who stand to lose from a single-payer healthcare system, for instance. The Koch brothers donating billions of dollars to Republican presidential campaigns, stating that it's their right because they have freedom of speech. Well, it's not really. You're not really exercising your freedom of speech. You're taking away other people's freedom and influencing these politicians and pressuring them to do things their way. I think, honestly, politicians aren't bad people. As we seem sort of as bad people. It's unfortunate that we sort of have a perception of them being dishonorable people. I don't think that's the case. I think a lot of politicians, unfortunately, are bought. I think and that's leads us to not getting anywhere, because anyone in their right mind is going to want to strive to reform education, because it's obvious the benefits of education. I think it's really special that all three of us, or at least I know personally, I love going to school every day, and that's something that everyone in America should have at least the opportunity to have. Any sane person would fight for that if they're a politician. But I think to a certain extent, at least there are maybe a smaller percentage than the media thinks, but there are definitely a lot of politicians who have something to lose by doing what they might really actually want to do deep down. And I think that is something that's unfortunate and that needs to be changed right away.
Mm-hmm. Well, can I disagree with something you said earlier? You said the first thing the president does when he or she enters the White House is the biggest issue, and I disagree with you. The way I think of it is more like chess. So the first thing that you do when you play chess is make the move that allows the most pieces to fall into place. So
it's
I think
thing.
Yeah, it's a strategic thing. So the
I get
first
that,
thing,
because you can't reform education without money.
Yeah, exactly. You can't reform education without money. Money definitely helps with the environmental problems and with healthcare. All that money is like the center of everything. So if you fix money first, then you can start going into the really big major problems that absolutely need to be addressed. Education absolutely needs to be addressed. The environment absolutely needs to be addressed. Healthcare absolutely needs to be addressed. But those problems will persist as long as we are in $18 trillion of debt, which is where we are right now, $18.2 trillion.
Here's my question, though. Is $18 trillion of debt going to be erased in one generation, in one presidency, even a double-term presidency?
At least start rolling the ball.
Sure,
right?
but then if you're starting to roll the ball, is that an immediate threat? If you're saying that no, that is not something that can be handled within one presidency, it can't be turned on a dime, then it's not the immediate thing that needs to be handled upon entry into office.
Yeah.
Well, you're looking at all of these issues, because they're so big, with the exception of education, have to be handled over a period of time. Debt, even after you get rid of it, you have to make sure that there are people out there who are willing to pick up mantles and helms and make sure we don't go into debt again. Even more true about environmental awareness and morality, and in terms of not taking bribes and things like that, and making sure that you don't try to bribe people, also comes from a form of education. All of these things, and I really do strongly believe in the idea that our youth, the future, is what is most important. And it's the most important thing is to make sure that we don't miss any generation. That's 8 years. That any time missed, that you do not start implementing a system which educates smarter and more capable next generation of citizens is time wasted. And considering something that's going to be done immediately, it does not take long. In fact, they've rearranged and jumbled how they do the education system. They've done so many reforms in the past year. It's clear. If you get one right, though, you can do it in not much time, and you can shift an entire generation's learning curve and our ability as a nation to put out not necessarily geniuses, but masters of their trade, and we can redominate the market and the playing field of high-level intellects.
I think that's certainly a fair point, and probably puts to shame what are you going to do to get money out of politics. However, I think there are, and I totally agree with you. Education is something I value very deeply. I mean, I think there's certainly a lack of character taught at school. I think there's a lack of morality taught at school. Just overall, our schooling system needs reformation. However, there are, while it would take time to see change in, climate change and sustainability, there are executive actions that a president can take and might have to take, because the way scientists are speaking about it, they're giving us between 1 and 3 generations to, as I said, flip the switch. And because Congress and because our legislative system seems to always be at a stalemate and not be able to make actual reform, I feel like it may or may not be. I think it. At the end of the day, it probably will be necessary for a president to take some sort of executive action to change the way, somehow put something in place, which at least puts us...
Wait, you mean use an executive order? Wait, are you saying... When you say
take
executive action...
Take executive action, right, that those two are synonymous. Well, I think...
No, executive order is different. The executive order is when, in clear and present danger, they can override Congress.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
In terms of declarations of war. Are you saying that the first thing they should do is issue an executive order?
No, but I'm saying that certainly it can be dealt with if it's, as you said, if we're at a point where... the danger is imminent enough, they can make a change within. They can at least present a change within weeks.
I acknowledge that, but I think once again, if you look at, there are two issues there. You're already talking about a stalemate, right? And you're talking about time that's going to take to get things done. The thing that I worry about is, especially on stalemates and things that are contested on one side of the aisle, the majority of the people there do not believe in climate change in the same way that you saw Obama try to bring really strict gun legislation and gun banning around, and that just didn't come through no matter how many times he tried to push it. I fear you will find once again that kind of stasis, that inability to push it through, and what you have was a wasted first attempt as opposed to a slow and ongoing process. Mm-hmm. So that kind of, so therefore, if you've got something that you will not be able to right off the bat say, this is something we can change right now, and it's essential. The education fits both of those categories. Education is something that's going to benefit all of these topics that you have outlined over obviously the many years, because that's what it does. It energizes the future. And you would be hard-pressed to find someone in Congress who wouldn't agree with a downsizing of how much we pay and an increase in the skill of our children. That's a very easy thing, I think, to get past through Congress.
If we were to start the ball rolling on debt, though, it would increase our pools that we can then dip into to solve other problems. So it wouldn't bring us right out of debt, but we would be able to spend a little bit more on pressing issues. We can just get the ball rolling on the debt, and then we can start focusing on education. And there's no time wasted, because as soon as the ball has started rolling on debt, now we have a little bit more that we can use to, basically patch up.
I think maybe the question's a little bit poorly worded, because the first thing you want the president to do once in office, that we've all pointed out how that's sort of
yeah. It's also we pointed out because there's no guarantee of its success.
Yeah, we've pointed out why it doesn't. It's like climate change, get money out of office, debt, even education. I think is not something you can do once you get in office. Just deal with it. Maybe a better question. Maybe the better way to word the question is to say, what's a question that you would ask our president is the thing that they want to accomplish once they've used the entire term or terms, or while when their time is maybe that's a better way to word it. I think then we'd sort of maybe come to a better conclusion. Right. But unfortunately, I think we're
with that in mind, I think we'll make our closing remarks. I still stand by education. I still think that the most essential thing, because none of these topics, as I've said, are going away anytime soon. These are all things that persist. And quite honestly, I mean, I tutor my little brother and sister, and the way they're being taught in school is ridiculous. I feel as if I'm having to circumvent the common curriculum in order to make sure that they get the education they deserve. I shouldn't feel like that. I should feel like an auxiliary in terms, I should be helping them learn in addition to whatever they're doing. And of course that's a personal anecdote. But again, if you look at the statistics, we are according to some lists, 22nd in the world. According to others, 36th. We spend among the most in the world on our education, and those statistics still pop up. And as we've said, and it's American virtue, that our children, our future is what's most important. The idea of ongoing. And all of these problems that, debt, money in politics, as well as the environment, are going to be ongoing issues. They are going to be issues that our next generation has to tackle as well. And so making sure that generation is well educated and well provided for is essential and the most important thing.
I disagree. I think I still stand by my my point that debt is the most important thing, and figuring out how to fix that, because that's just an easy thing to get rolling. Easy, obviously, is not the easiest thing in the world. It's something that you go in and you start,
It's very clear.
It's a clear thing.
Defined.
Exactly. It's a clear thing that you can do, get the ball rolling, maybe bring in a little bit more money, and then you have more supplies, reserves to tap into to solve other problems, and I think that's the most important thing to start out with.
Well, it looks like we got nowhere, because I'm going to stand by at least climate change. But I'll certainly see the benefits of. I think I see your point about education. So maybe the two can be interchanged, but and I'll drop maybe get money out of politics, because that seems like a really big. That's sort of a big question. But anyway, that's it for Sparking Thought. Come back next week.